Joanne Hayes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to take a call on the Gambling Amendment Bill number 3, the second reading. And I'm really pleased to do this because I come from, I had a background in a program called the Problem Gambling Contract, which our member across the way there, the member Adrian Rudolph, knows very well, and it was a problem gambling contract. And part of that contract there was about working with the venues that had pokies and making sure that they upheld the rules and regulations of each of their venues, and working with the retail sector as well. And while we were doing that, some issues that came up around that was the staff training around how do you identify a problem gambler, and how do you work with that problem gambler to make sure that they get the proper counselling opportunities. The second area that we looked at was making sure that the Department of Internal Affairs were keeping up with their audits of these premises. And the third area was supporting the Whanganui District Council at the time with their sinking lid policy that they put in for gambling venues, that once they closed or went out of gambling machines, pokie machines, that no more pokie machines were actually introduced to Whanganui. And so, Mr Speaker, when I look at this bill, even though I wasn't on the committee when it came through, I could see that there are so much more advantages for people who have the problem gambling contracts in New Zealand to actually help to implement this bill. And so the bill, like my colleagues have said, it aims to increase the transparency of grant making from the proceeds of Class 4 gambling venues. Now, while I was working in this organisation in Whanganui, this was some of the feedback that we were getting from some of the community providers there, and their ability to not know when whether or not their applications would be successful, and how that was actually going, and how they would be advantaged by that. And I want to talk about a particular provider that was based out of Taihape, and they would apply for funds from the community. Grants for uniforms for their kuras or their kapahaka groups, and most of them were declined. And so when we start looking at that, they didn't know why they were declined. So I believe that increasing the transparency around that grant-making process is going to be very good for providers, small providers in rural areas that have hotels, that have a gambling venue attached to them, is going to be a very good policy section to this bill, because they will understand exactly where all the money is going to and why they actually missed out. Reducing potential conflicts of interest through the key person, and I don't want to go any more onto that. I think that through Mark Mitchell and others in the House have discussed that quite well, but it also allows small providers, community groups, gives them an understanding also about conflicts of interest, as well as, and as I said, I'm not delving any more into the key persons, but also gives some clarity around that. And obviously it's up to the committee during their committee stage to debate that out further. It also provides improving transparency surrounding management companies that provide societies with services. And I think this is very good for the societies. I think that having those organisations to be able to come in and support them, and to provide those the services through increased transparency of the types of services that they are receiving is good for the societies, and will support them. It also, another aim of this bill is to simplify compliance and reduce costs, and that's around, and I was pleased to see when I was reading the information around the bill, is advertising when the grants process is coming up. So at times it would cost the various societies quite a lot of money to advertise that, but to be able to actually do that via internet is a good way of reducing costs, and which means that more money money, so the less money used on advertising and things like that is good for the community, because that means more money can be invested back into the community to do good things for that particular community. And also ensuring the efficiency of appeals process that's not undermined. So, and that's a real core section to this bill, Mr. Speaker. When I start to look at the allocation of funding, which I understand, listening to the speech just before me through the member Clayton Mitchell around, how are the proceeds of the funds allocated. Now, about $200 million is allocated out, and I got that information out of the guide to pokies in New Zealand from the Department of Internal Affairs. So about $200 million, Mr. Speaker, is invested into the communities. But that's only a portion of it, because 40% of those funds are the gaming duty percentage for the total amount of funds gained through take of pokie machines actually goes on gaming duty. 16% goes as a maximum venue payment. We have a problem gambling levy, which is 1.51%, and that levy is where these problem gambling organisations are actually funded out of. And that's where, at the organisation that I worked with, that's where they got their funding from to be able to deliver the services to the people in the Wanganui area.
Order, I am going to interrupt the member and ask her now to address the bill. Thank you.
Yeah.
Not problem gambling generally, or gambling generally.
Yeah, I was just talking about the allocation of Class 4 gaming machines. Yeah. Because that's about investing back into the community. It's about this bill being able to free up funds, so through the reduction of the various costs that it takes to advertise the grants process. And so, people understand, because I tell you, when I worked in that sector, people thought that all the funds that the machines made that would all come back to the community. They had no understanding of where it all came from and where it was all going to, and that was really key. Obviously the distribution of authorised purposes is about 40% of that. So, Mr. Speaker, I'll carry on with this bill. So we want to make sure that, again, I'm going to say this, again, that local communities benefit from this bill. It's so key, because government cannot keep funding for everything, and so this is an opportunity for the communities, for organisations that are Class 4 gaming machine societies, organisations can actually help to do that and help to grow their communities, and it does bring about a close community, Mr. Speaker. So the policy framework of the Gaming Act 2003, so the purpose of gambling is to, obviously, as I said, to raise funds for our community and for the societies that they belong to. And a little bit more around transparency of the grant making by societies, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, because it's to make more comprehensive information, as I said, on grants available to communities, so communities understand what it is that they can actually apply up for and how successful they will be. I've talked about the reducing conflicts of interest, and I've talked a little bit about improving transparency of management company operations. But I just want to say a little bit more about that, because some societies, they use these companies in their gambling operations, and with these companies they provide societies with services like contract negotiations, and that's a key thing with some of the venues, and it may not be a skill that these venue people actually hold. Some administration and financial management, which is really key to be able to make sure that their business is financially operational. Some of the owners may not have the full skill, and so that's what these management companies actually do, and especially for around grant application processing. And it's really important, because I've sat on organisations, funding and planning organisations, where we have to have a robust system for being able to deliver funds out to the community that is equal and fair. But it's not exactly a skill that you can just pick up and read a book about. It has to be fair and it has to be transparent. And also, another key area is provides the Secretary for Internal Affairs the ability to be able to audit the companies, but also the ability to actually give licences out also to Class 4 venues, which is very good, and it helps to reduce some of the funding that goes along with it. Okay, so and wrapping up, Mr. Speaker, I think this is a very good bill. I'm pleased that I've had a chance to be able to get up and talk a little bit about my experience within the problem gambling area, about gambling minimisation, and I commend the bill to the House and thank Mr. Dunn. Thank you.